3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Coffee Code and Chat. I'm joined here by Elliot. Before we get too far, because these streams, sometimes things happen, I want to know that you could hear us, see us. That's probably the most important part. So let us know in the chat if you can. And if so, we're going to actually just jump in and start chatting with Elliot. And by the way, how are you doing today? How's everything? How's the weather where you at?
The weather up and down. Had a little bit of rain, a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah.
It is broad daylight here, despite me putting a little lamp on behind me. I thought I've got to match your blue amazing background, so that's my poor attempt at it.
No worries. Yeah, I just have these lights that never leave, never turn off, which is probably weird, but yeah. Yeah, so we have people saying hello in the chat. We got Sharon, Inga, Dev Puddles. I like that name. I'm so bad at pronouncing the name. Mateus. Sorry if I mess it up, but he says, hello, everybody. So what we're going to do, we just start with a brief introduction of Elliot. And I met him on Twitter, which is why I love Twitter, because sometimes you get to meet really cool people. So Elliot, tell us a little bit about yourself, just like a brief synopsis, how you got started and what are you doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Manchester in the UK. I sort of spent maybe eight years or so coming out of college in hospitality. Went through those rounds and then, kind of decided that wasn't sustainable and that lifestyle wasn't going to be something I wanted to, carry on with for the long term. So that's how I kind of made that switch. I went to a coding bootcamp and managed to get my first position from there. And I've been doing that for about just over 4 years now as a front-end developer. And I work for a company at the moment in London. It's kind of like a financial investment company, but I work in the digital assets team. So it's like a lot of cool Web3 projects.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's some interesting work. But yeah, I've not looked back, and it's been pretty amazing journey.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, like, how old were you when you decided to make the switch? Was it like right out of college, or did you work in the hospitality industry for a little bit?
Yeah, so I must have been about 25, 26. So I'd been and done a bit of kind of hard graft before the transition into tech, I suppose. But been just over 4 years now, and it's been pretty good.
Nice. So what was it like getting your first job as a developer? Like, what was the process? How long did it take you? Was it as easy as YouTube says it was? That's what I want to know. It's like, let me guess, it took you 30 days and you're probably making $1 million. That's what happened, right? Okay.
Yeah. I wish, that would be good.
Speaking the truth here.
I think actually looking back, I was pretty fortunate. It's very different now than what it was 4 years ago, and I think it's a lot more difficult now. I found a boot camp in Manchester. I had to spend a little bit to go on to this kind of course. And they had great connections across the city. So they could put you in front of potential employers at the end of the 12 weeks. And at the end of the 12 weeks, I got an apprenticeship, which is essentially like a 15, 18 month course, if you like, where you're on site working hands-on, but you've got to do a little bit of a few exams and a bit of coursework, if you like. But I didn't really care at that point. I just wanted to get into the industry and get learning. Whereas I think it's very different now. I don't think it's as clear cut as that. I think that it's so competitive, and you've really got to stand out, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's seriously, and actually, like Doyle says, boot camps.
Is that Kev?
I don't know. He's using different picture. I'm just gonna hey, Doyle, make sure you're the right Kevin before I make fun of you. Do you play guitar? I just say that in the comments, because I'd hate to say lots of nice things and it'll be the wrong Kevin. But no, I'm just kidding. Everybody here is nice. It's definitely hard. For me, it's been really difficult, switching careers. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that it's very difficult process. And one thing that you just said that stood out, it's you had opportunity to be in a place where they had good opportunity to meet potential like people that are going to hire you. And it seems that that part of like networking or having someone that is helping you with that is super important. Do you think if you didn't have that, getting your first job would have been like really difficult?
A lot more difficult for sure. Yeah, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was extremely fortunate that I could take 3 months out of working a full-time job to support myself, go on this course and do it. I was pretty screwed if I didn't get anything out of the end, at the end of it. But I was very fortunate in that sense. It would have been a lot harder without those connections at the end of the course. But at the same time, the skill set that I sort of left with after 3 months of full-time learning was reasonably strong at the time. So I came out with kind of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a little bit of React knowledge. And back then that was enough to probably get yourself a junior role. I think you probably got to go a little bit further now to get that first position though.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, so before we actually touch on that, so what would you say that, like, so how was your first initial job experience? Did you feel like you were like, oh, I got this? Or did you feel like struggle every, like the first 6 months? You're like, I think it's today. I think today I'm going to get fired. I just want to personally know that.
Yeah. I think the company I went into was kind of well geared to take on some juniors, and they kind of had a nice team that you kind of got settled into, and there wasn't too much pressure. But I still had that feeling, like you say, of getting sacked every single day. The imposter syndrome was really tough. It was hard. You'd come home every night going, "Oh, I'm never going to make it past tomorrow or whatever." But that's part of it, right? Especially if you transition from one industry to another. Never worked in tech before. Never mind worked as a developer, and that's a big change. And I imagine you probably felt similar. It's not just as straightforward as walking in the door on the first day and.
Yeah, no, 100%. I literally felt like every day I'm like going to get fired. The one lesson that I learned as a new dev, don't be afraid to ask questions, because I was afraid to ask questions because I was like, they're going to find out I don't know anything. And so I would spend maybe 2-3 days not getting anything done. And then 3 days later, I'll be like, hey, I have a question. And they'll be like, what the hell were you doing? Why didn't you ask this question earlier? I'm like, I was scared. I thought like, that's crazy. So now if someone wanted to break into the industry, what do you think they need to know?
I think first of all, you've got to try and figure out where your interest lies. So, is it front-end development? Is it actually you've kind of delved into that and you think back-end's more kind of orientated to your interests? But equally, if you don't want to be a developer but you want to work in tech, there's tens and I would maybe say hundreds of different roles in tech where you can go and learn a certain skill set, whether that be kind of testing, UX, security. There's loads of different options and routes, right? I've always been a front-end developer, so if you were going to go and kind of try and get a position in that space, then you are, for me, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and that's just not a brief overview. You've got to understand it and dive into it. You can't rush past those basics.
Yeah.
And then it's always a case of a framework, I think, and look. I always say look local to where you are and what companies are using. For me, it was React, but I've spoken to people in kind of Germany and their Vue. I'm not saying the whole of Germany's Vue, but they were kind of orientated to Vue. I spoke to a lot of other people. One dev, a junior dev that I was speaking to for quite a while, who lived in Singapore. He had to learn Angular. So it's just really varies. It's not kind of set as everyone go and learn React and you'll get a job. But you're not stuck, right? If you go and learn React or Vue or Angular or whatever it might be, and you get your foot in the door, you're not stuck there forever. Actually, that opens so many doors for you. So sometimes you've got to do a bit of box ticking to get through. But after
no,
that,
100. 100%. I was gonna say like one thing. Definitely people have to do research to find out like in their area what is the popular and the tech that it's in demand. And talking from our friends from Coder Foundry, they always say make sure you do your research because every area is going to have different thing that's more popular. There's some places in the country where PHP is actually rules everything. And so if you learn the wrong thing for the area that you live in, it's going to be really tough. Like for me, I moved from Connecticut to Texas just because I knew there's way more React jobs. And that's the route I decided. And for me, by the way, and I don't know if you had a similar sentiment, I realized that getting hired as a front dev was way easier than, let's say, going full stack or even back end. And I still recommend for people that are short on time and they want to break into the industry, start with front end. But with that being said, like kind of talking about what you were saying, in my understanding, based on what I had to do my first job, I think like front end means understanding obviously HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, knowing a framework, whatever it is, React, Angular, Vue. And then also I think understanding, at least from the front end standpoint, how to consume an API and do like CRUD functionality from like front end standpoint. If you do those things, I think like you'll be ready for a junior role. But if you kind of like don't do that, feel like it's going to be hard. Is that like something like you've noticed or?
Yeah, I think the API thing you just touched on is quite important too. And I think as soon as you kind of start getting into the specifics a bit more, you then look at, well, actually some sort of version control, whether that be kind of Git or GitHub, that's pretty useful as well. And people will probably expect that you've delved into that and looked at it. There's probably a bit of a bundle of things around that. It's, not maybe as straightforward as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and a framework. But also those other things that you kind of tag on, right? There's the portfolio, there's the projects, there's all these little like forks that are going to really help you stand out past just having a few skills. You've got to demonstrate those as well.
Yeah, and I think like from just non-technical skills, you also have to have like personal skills. This idea of like also like interviewing is a skill, building relationships and networking is a skill. And a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but like 90% of your opportunities are going to come from people that you know. And so a lot of my jobs where I got hired was because I knew someone who referred my resume. I applied once cold to IBM, and I got rejected instantly. It was like one of these like automatic rejections. And then I called my friend from IBM, told him my story. He's like, dude, what the hell were you doing? Like, you know me at IBM. If you gave me your resume, you at least would have had a interview. Not saying I would have gotten the job anyway, but still, like I would have at least been closer to that step. So I think that social part of it and networking is like super important. And there's a comment someone said, for someone who's after 30, working full time, got a family, it's hard to spend extra time for learning, possible but hard. Yeah, 100%. If you're looking to switch careers, one thing that I would say, you have to take into consideration your family arrangement. So if you're married and have kids and you have responsibilities, this idea of switching careers is going to put real stress on you, and you need to have supporting partners. And in my situation, literally like, and I'm just going to say it straight out because I want to be honest with you, because I was like, I got my first tech job at 39. I'm 42 right now. So for me, like really focusing on being good at what I do was like super important. And I try to tell my partner like, hey, this is the price I have to pay right now. And the truth is your partner will agree with it or not agree with it. Maybe they'll have different expectations for like their mate. And sometimes like you might put stress on your relationship that you might go your separate ways. And the reason I say this is because for anybody who's older and making this decision, you have to take all those things into account and understand that if you have a family, have responsibility, that's your responsibility to manage that and make sure that you put everybody as a team into your decision process, which is something I wish I would have learned earlier. But
not an easy thing to juggle though, right?
No, yeah, 100%. So, but what I was going to say, you do have let me quickly share my screen here. You do have a website that I wanted to bring up early on in the conversation. It's called iamLearning. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What was the motivation for creating it? And yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so I'm Learning kind of came about really off the back of doing Twitter Spaces with a couple of the viewers we've got, Dan and Kevin and Chris as well, who set up iamLearning with. And myself and Chris were just talking, and we just had the same questions every week around, I want to get into tech. Where do I start? What resources do I trust? And really off the back of that, we thought, let's create some sort of platform where we can bring together tried, tested resources and store them in one place. You know, these are resources we've used, we've kind of looked at, or other industry professionals have recommended to us, and kind of put those in one spot. And we want to create a platform essentially where we're not only helping people get into tech, but we're also helping those who are in tech and want to learn a new skill. And we're trying to create an environment where it's kind of that cross between a boot camp and also, say, a Udemy course. You know, there's all the information you need, but we can hold your hand a little bit more than just a paid course online. And that's really the inspiration for it. We're just going to see where it goes. There's some exciting things we've got planned over the next year, and I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to help someone for sure, if not a few people. It's quite an exciting project actually in the space.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, but because you could have just totally just kept working and focused on your job. Why create this project?
Well, I mean, part of it is giving back. I think without the support and help that I had or received when I was not only learning and going through a boot camp, but in that first job, I think I would have really struggled to continue. We're trying to create something where we can help and give back to people like myself and you, who made that transition to get into tech. It's not as easy as it sounds, and I think if you can be there to support somebody, or the other thing is, like the person in the comments that said it's quite hard to juggle all those things of family and life and a full-time job. Last thing you want to be doing is spending the hour you've got in an evening on a out-of-date resource or something that is inaccurate, and we're trying to kind of safeguard people from going through that as well. It's more giving back, I suppose.
Yeah, no, but I like the idea of curated content that is pre-filtered by you, being like, okay, this is a really good resource. Because like I said, anybody older, the hardest thing they have is finding time. And so if you're wasting time finding the appropriate resources that could be beneficial or helpful to you, then yeah, you're losing out. So I think that's kind of cool. Now, let me ask you another question. Was part of building this website also to be like, hey, I created a website that gets this amount of traffic, it has this amount of users, and kind of put it as part of your portfolio?
Good question. I don't think it was necessarily about, the bragging rights of look how many viewers or visitors I've got and all the rest. I don't think so. It's kind of nice to validate the skill set that you've been building over the past few years, and putting that into action, I suppose. But not necessarily. I don't think we care too much about how much traffic we get as such. We're just going to create a quality platform.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if it's good, word of mouth will do the marketing for us, and people will use it. I think it's less so about, here's something I can stick on my portfolio. Having said that, it's definitely helped me sticking that on my CV and getting a job, because. But
you bring up a really good point. That's a passion project that you were going to do regardless. And I think what stood out to me is to make a quality platform. So you're not you're literally trying to solve a problem. And even though you're not doing it for these reasons, consequently, it's something that is going to look good on your portfolio, And so, and the only reason I ask is because there's a lot of people that come on who start learning web development, and they're like, I'm gonna go freelancing, because they think somehow, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm the crazy one, but they think freelancing is easier than getting your first job. And to me, I feel like you need to know the job very well in order to do freelancing well. And then there's like 10 different things you have to be good at, like, you know, finding clients, managing your books, everything else, customer support. So for me, like freelance is like, or creating like your own product, it brings a lot of responsibilities. And the reason I ask is like, so you're working this on the side and you also have like your job. Do you recommend people try to follow like in the footsteps? Because I'm trying to do something similar as well, where I have my job, but then I also have a side project that I'm trying to do.
Well, I think the key word was passion, right? If you think you're building something cool, you're excited by what you're building, then it doesn't become a chore to do it, you know, on the side of your job. Building projects alongside working is not something I've always done. It probably took me 3 years to do it. You know, I was trying to keep up with the reality of a dev job, and the work I had to do day to day. You know, in work, it's not as easy as just, you know, to turn your work laptop off at 5 p.m. and jump on your personal one or your PC and start building. But yeah, if it's something you're interested in, then it's going to help. And I think I would really recommend to anybody learning or, you know, already as a developer to build something on the side. And that doesn't have to be like a code project, right? That could be a podcast, that could be anything. But yeah, it comes in handy when you then try and sell yourself wherever that might be.
Yeah. Like, I feel like if you don't have a degree, like you're competing with other people that have degrees. And I feel like if you had a portfolio project, let's say it's not like domain XYZ still living on Netlify without like a real URL, but you have something that you deploy to production, has some users, not a lot of users, it doesn't matter. But the fact that there's people using it and you kind of took something from start to production and you kind of maintaining it, I think it's always going to look better as a project. And I feel like you're always trying to stand out. So one of the things that I struggled with when I first was trying to get hired is my projects weren't good enough yet. And because they weren't good enough, I was like, oh, it's ageism. People are not hiring me because I'm too old, like all these excuses. And then it's like when I leveled up a little bit and made better projects to demonstrate that I have the skill that the company requires, then I was able to get a job. So like, let me ask you, like I have so many questions just came up from that thing. Do you think a lot of people who are looking to get their first job underestimate what it takes to get your junior job?
100%, yeah. I think there's two things. The first one is that you see so many people who rush through those basics that we mentioned, whether that be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you kind of go, okay, completed that Udemy course in a day. I know HTML and I know CSS now, and it just doesn't work like that. You've really got to understand them, and they'll help you in the long run, and they'll help you in interview scenarios. But also putting that skill set into practice in projects is so important. And you know, one of the things we spoke about over and over again on Twitter Spaces was, okay, you made a to-do list. Everybody's made a to-do list, though.
Yeah.
So what's different about your to-do list? Or have you created another project that is exciting, different? And, you know, Dan, who's, I think, or hopefully still listening, is really, really good at that, where he'll take a standard project, I say standard, like a to-do list, but then add so many features to it that it no longer becomes a to-do list, yet the functionality underneath really is just a to-do list. And we always used to laugh with Kevin as well from Coder Foundry about his bug tracker project, but more importantly, business relevant projects that solve a business purpose. You know, just thinking outside of the box with your projects, you know, will make you stand out a lot. So yeah, it's not easy, and you've got to think out of the box to beat the competition, really.
Yeah, and I think like it's the hardest part is to stand out, and a lot of people watch others and they copy what others do, and especially like if you've done a bunch of Udemy courses and you throw those exact Udemy courses into your portfolio, it's not saying that it's wrong. Like I've done that as well, but the thing is, there's going to be like 30 other people that have the same project, so you definitely have to go and do something different. So for me, you know, I was like, okay, like I started learning to code at 36. It was like a crazy struggle. And I literally went that route where I took time off work just so I could study more. I worked part-time at a supermarket, but literally the savings that I had, the supermarket money wasn't like refeeding it. And so it was like little by little was like kind of like going down and down and down. And I was literally like fighting against time. And I got lucky that I was able to get my first React job. But like the struggle is real. And so after like everything I've been through, like when telling people like what's the best advice, and it's like you have to stand out, and it sounds so generic. It's like, how do you stand out? And actually give Kevin and Bobby more props from Coder Foundry. They have a really good video. I forgot what it's called, but it's like 5 things that you could do that will guarantee you landing a job. And it's like, you know, having a blog, like self-promoting yourself, doing like certain things that give you more reach than you would have if you just code it and blindly send your resume. And for me, when I took my approach to break into the industry, I'm like, I'm going to do a lot of things that I feel are important that will help me get into the door. And I don't know which one of those things helped me to get hired, but I just knew that if I do all of these things, like my reputation is going to grow, I'm going to get noticed more, and it's going to be better. And I know a lot of people, they just think like, oh, I'll just code and I'll just send my resume and they'll be good. And the truth is, it's not enough. And you know, so
it's a package of things, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just like say coding and a CV, and those two things can be really good, right? But you've got to have that package, and LinkedIn being another one, right? I know people who have got their first junior job by recruiters reaching out on LinkedIn to them. You know, there's way more to it than just a coding and a CV. And as well, you know, we had a recruiter on one of our Twitter spaces, and the amount of time that they spend looking at your CV is seconds.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to do more than that.
Yeah, no, it's true. I learned a dirty secret that recruiters use. The recruiter was awesome that I talked to. She's a friend of mine, but she told me, I asked her, I was like, where do you look on LinkedIn when you first look at a potential person to work with? First, they look at your main thing to see like what tech you use and if you have a job already. Because they know if you have a job already, you're the best person to place. And sometimes that's where a lot of recruiters stop. Like, so if you don't have previous job experience, and unfortunately that sucks, they're just gonna move on. And then she's like, the second thing we look at is like to see like, you know, what skills that you like rated, like, I forgot what it's called on LinkedIn, but people like endorse your skills and then whatever. But it's literally like if you have a job and then your resume, and they spend like very short time. And I was like, man, that's like, if you can't stand out like in your resume or your profile, it's like you're in trouble.
But the reality is that someone else is standing out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So so when you were like getting hired, like how much time do you spend on your resume? Did you do like research on how to write one? Did you like, or did you just like, and I guess it's like rhetorical, willy-nilly, just threw something up there and hope for the best? Or did you like literally spend a lot of time on your resume to make sure that it's like the best it can be?
Well, again, I got lucky, I suppose. The boot camp put me in front of people. They helped me with my CV, and that really paid off. You know, since getting my job, I've hopefully helped a few people in that, you know, that same space. And the advice has to be that you can't just send one CV out to 1,000 companies and hope for a result. You've got to really think about what you're putting on there. We've broken down what you should include on a CV and gone through that with people. That's one of the things we want to bring to iamLearning as well. Myself and Chris, we're looking at how we can create a checklist or a roadmap of basically how to get hired, and here, you know, list all the things of what you should be doing to put yourself in the best possible position. So yeah, I probably say that I was fortunate, but there's so much value in tailoring a CV or thinking about what you're applying for, because you can get desperate, right? You can kind of go, I really want this first job, I'm going to apply to 100 companies, and then quite easily get deflated when you just get rejected from them all because you've not spent time looking at, does your tech stack match theirs? is your CV standing out? So yeah, it takes some thought, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm gonna quickly like show you because we're talking about resumes. The super important part is having a properly formatted resume and spend some time on it, like for sure. But I'm gonna quickly share my screen. Here's an old resume that I had. And some people will be like, well, it's all right. It kind of tells, like, lists your skills, like kind of what you do. But then if you look at my updated, which is still my old resume, this same information, but presented in a way where someone could spend seconds looking at it and kind of get a understanding of where I am and should they proceed farther. But if you have a resume that looks like this, and this is just literally same information, but not formatted like for readability, this resume for me got 0 jobs, like 0 interviews. And so that's why I wanted to bring that up, like spend some time on resume. I ended up like actually getting a template and make sure that you spent a lot of time. And one thing that I wanted to add is a lot of people that I talk to, regardless if they went to boot camp, some boot camps had like really good resources, and I'll talk a little bit more about it because some people hate boot camps, some people love boot camps. So we could have a conversation about that as well. But a lot of the people that I talked to, average number of resumes they sent before they got hired was like 400, 300. And so they would send 300 resumes. They would get 5 interviews and possibly 2 offers, and then they will choose one. And to me, like blew my mind because most people, they're just like, oh, how many resumes did you send? 3, 4. It's like, no, it's going to take time.
I think as well, like just in the comments, someone's asking what should you include on LinkedIn when you're changing careers and your past jobs don't have much to do with development?
Yeah,
that's
go ahead.
Such a great question.
You could start first.
So I think, first of all, there's generally something you can pull from previous experience that's worth listing. And maybe you just have to think a little bit deeper into what you were doing before and how you can make that applicable to tech. The other thing is that if you really have nothing to put, well, then you've got to go out and try and find something that you can put. And that might be joining a group online and contributing to an open source project. That might be volunteering for a group local to you, or a company or a charity. And that then becomes job experience on LinkedIn that you can list and say you've done hands-on experience with a real project, and that is worth a lot when you're starting out.
Yeah, so I'll share my like LinkedIn. Just don't like send me scamming emails, please. I'm just kidding, I don't care. Hold on, let me share it here. So the reason I want to share this is because a lot of people don't know, but I switched careers from mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu training to web development. And so this is how my LinkedIn looks like. It took a while to get here, but initially I just have my name and I have the things that I do. I have to change this a little bit. The tech stack that I use like switched a little bit. But the one thing that I want to show you here is when we go to, where's that section? Oh, I didn't graduate college. I dropped out, but whatever. No, that's not it. Where's my, experience. Here we go. So when I initially started, and this is what I just want to say, it's time. I worked as a co-founder and partner of like Super Kids Karate and Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like this was the martial arts school. I ran that business for 9 years and 5 months. Then I worked as an insurance salesperson for 8 months. Then I quit. Then I got an internship in WordPress where basically I did minor HTML adjustments. Then my friend and I created, he created Fluid Logic Design. We didn't really have any paying successful clients, but we did try. But I did get a lot of experience like using React and JavaScript. Then eventually I was like, I don't know about this web development thing. So I got another job working as a marketing manager while still studying to be a developer. Then I got a front-end development job, still more with WordPress oriented and really creating like the front ends with HTML and CSS. And then eventually in 2021, I got my real software developer engineering job at this company. And then little by little. And so when I first started, to answer your question, I literally had just the stuff that was irrelevant. And guess what? You have to start looking for relevant experience. And over time, you're going to build that reputation. But it takes time. And this is why I tell people like that say, you could switch in 30 days. As you could see, based on the steps that I took, it didn't take me 30 days to break into the field. And that's something that people should have in mind, is that have realistic expectations of what development is. And that's why I asked you that question, Elliot, like earlier. It's like, do you think a lot of people underestimate what it takes to land your first job? To which you're like, oh yeah, 100%. So let's talk about like boot camps a little bit. So what's your opinion at boot camps? Just give like your opinion first, and then like I'll give mine, and then we could talk more about it.
Yeah, sure. So there's, I suppose, different types of boot camps. There's boot camps which are free online, sort of essentially like 100 devs, right, on Twitter.
I don't know if you went mute. Not sure if there's a mute.
I went mute.
It's okay. Yeah. Now you're back.
Now
you're back. It's good.
This is a disastrous YouTube live debut.
No, it's the best. Listen, I'm not wearing any pants right now, so I'm gonna try not to stand up. So you're good. You're doing good. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? I meant to mute that. Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, I suppose there's a couple of different types of boot camps, right? There's the paid and unpaid, and online and in person. And I think there's these days probably the same value in doing something like 100 devs and being part of a Twitter cohort of learning, and holding yourself accountable with other people alongside you. That's probably as valuable in some cases as a paid boot camp. You know, you've got to really think about what you want to try and get out of a boot camp, and whether the boot camp you want to do is going to give you that. And I think unless there is that networking and opportunities and those relationships with real companies that hire juniors, I'd consider what you want to go on a boot camp for. And really, there's some good and some bad, and it's kind of down to you to make that decision, and whether you want to invest both your time or money into a boot camp. There's plenty of people that have got jobs through something like 100 devs, and there's plenty of people who've got jobs through paying, I don't know what you pay in the US, but maybe in the UK, anywhere up to 10 grand maybe. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I would say, like, there's good services, there's bad services. There's definitely, like, good boot camps and bad boot camps. But a lot of times, and this is maybe unpopular opinion, like, some people that have, I'm sure there's a couple of people that have been bamboozled. But at some point, there's people that go into boot camp and they're not serious about, like, their change. They're not willing to do the work. And so they have a negative experience because they themselves didn't put in the work. And then they'll complain, oh, this boot camp sucked. I couldn't get a job. It's like, well, what did you do? I didn't do anything. It's like, and I'm not saying there's bad boot camp. So I think, like, number one, spend time, find a good boot camp. There's a lot of out there. That's why, by the way, I used to do like C# development a long time ago. I don't do it anymore, but I really like Coder Foundry channel because they add a lot of value and they do a very soft sale for their bootcamp. They literally like never like tell you, and they're like, hey, if you want it, you could check out our website. And I kind of like that because it's not like self like promoting, and then also because it's a business, they're like, hey, if we have a shitty bootcamp, we're gonna go out of business. I didn't mean to swear, sorry, but that's the case, and that's like how like things work. And so I think like the truth is, it's like, do your research, and find the right boot camp. But at the same time, the secret to breaking into the industry and getting a good job, the secret is your work that you're willing to do yourself. So if you're not going to do any work, like there's nobody that could help you. Like for instance, I talk to people. There's this girl that joined my community because I thought like when I broke into the like web, I was like, it's a fluke. I got lucky. Whatever tips I give is BS. So she followed me, and then like. And she's like, oh, Paul, you give good tips. But it's not even the tips that I did. She just set her mind, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for the next 6 months to get a job as a React developer. And she did. And then I had somebody else who asked me a question about a resume 2 years ago. And they're like, I'm like, okay, do these changes and then get back to me. 2 years later, he gets back to me. He's like, oh, Paul, can you help me? And I'm like, hey, did you make those changes that I told you to make on your resume? He's like, no. I'm like, then there's nobody that could help you. I'm sorry. Like, you need to do your work. And so I feel like if there's a will, there's a way. But with that being said, like,
can you, for 30 days and or however long the boot camps are, whether it's 12 weeks, whatever, you can't just turn up and expect off the back of that, well, I've turned up for 12 weeks, I'm employable. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, when you were learning and going, like, what was your study schedule look like? Like, how much time did you put in? What did you do that helped you to, like, solidify the knowledge that you were learning?
Yeah, so the bootcamp I did was actually kind of in person, and it was sort of 9 till 5 in an office in Manchester. So it was pretty structured, but I would always on the way in to, I'd get the train in, and that'd take me, say, an hour. I would be kind of reading either what I did the day before or preparing for what we were going to be learning that day. I'd go in, do the 9 till 5 or whatever it might have been, keeping up with the class and trying my best. And then after that, I'd get home, have my tea, and then, I'd be on my laptop trying to understand the stuff I'd just learned. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, I wouldn't have had a clue what I'd just been learning during that day. And I had to put in that little bit extra effort to try and learn, all this information that was kind of new to me. So yeah, it was pretty much full time, as many hours as I could whilst I was awake, to solidify and really learn, I suppose. It's not. I would really have struggled had I not done that extra bit of learning outside of the boot camp.
Yeah, I think what helped me. So again, I'll go back to my previous example. I used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and teach mixed martial arts. So I was really good at it because it was like a lifestyle. Like, I literally slept, dreamt Jiu-Jitsu and everything I did. And I realized when I was going to make this career choice, I had to kind of like not be that person. And so I basically looked, what's like the stereotypical developer does? Like, how do they live their life? And so I identified myself as that type of person, and that's what I'm going to do. And so everything, and it was like a hard stop in my life. I literally quit jiu-jitsu. People were like, what are you, crazy? Like, you have you're doing good. Like, you're respecting the community. I'm like, yeah, but my body is broken. I need to do something safer. And so I literally became, in my mind, I'm a developer. This is what I do. This is what I think like. So like, I would study, development. I would watch YouTube videos around development. I would read books on development. I would make friends around development. And people like, that's a little bit extreme, but I'm like, yeah, I'm older and I don't have time. So I want to try to surround and immerse myself in an environment where, like, I have nothing but to become a developer. You know what I mean? And that's kind of been my strategy. And I think, like, if you press for time, that's something to consider, where it's like, let me immerse myself in, this whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that immersing yourself during that time of learning is really important. And we're going to go back to that comment earlier around juggling family life and full-time job and whatever else. And, even just having that consistent little block of learning each day maybe is well worth having and kind of throwing yourself in there. But whilst you're on a lunch break in your full-time job and you can connect with a few people or reach out to a few people on Twitter or whatever it might be, that all builds towards that kind of end goal.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to call out this comment. I saw it too late, but Daniel said, how do you stand out on your LinkedIn? And he said, add a featured section with links to your portfolio and project. And this is one way you could kind of guide people to dev-related stuff if you still don't have that experience. I think that's a great idea. Like I said, the people that I talk to that are able to land jobs, like, they're already convinced themselves, even if it's like delusional, they convince themselves that they are going to get hired at some point. It's just a matter of time. And they basically like, what do I need to do today that brings me closer to the goal? And so I know some people do blogs, some people like share code stuff on Twitter. Like, I decided to do a YouTube channel that, like, literally, if you look at my YouTube channel, on my first video, I didn't have a job. Like, literally, my YouTube channel is like, a recorded history of some random dude on the internet who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, going to some random dude on the internet who doesn't know what he's talking about, but has a job in web dev. It's like pretty amazing. And so, and for me, it's like, I just decided like, I'm going to either fail and learn, or I'm going to get hired. But it was never like, I'm going to fail and that's it. I think like if you stop, that's when the issue arises. So I think like it's super important to keep going. So like in your studying, like what kept you motivated to continue? Because I'm sure you had like tough times. You're like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, or were you always like, no, I got this?
Oh no, definitely. I think I'd had a bit of a play around with WordPress, and I'd sort of understood what HTML looked like, and I sort of understood that CSS would style the HTML, and then JavaScript hit, and that is when I sort of crumbled and went. And especially when you're learning around people, you know, I was physically sat next to someone who was incredible at JavaScript and been learning the same amount of time as me, and you see it on Twitter as well, like people who have been learning for the same amount of time, and someone else is really good, and then they're like crumbling inside because they can't grasp a concept, and that's normal. People take different lengths of time to learn and understand. I would say for the first 3 years, I had that doubt of, oh, hang on a minute, am I good enough for this? Can I do this? And then you've just got to get to a point and tell yourself that you wouldn't have got this far if you weren't good enough. And when you're learning to be consistent, you've got to hold yourself accountable in some way. And I see loads of people doing that through Twitter, right? You know, like things like the 100 days of code hashtag, and just making yourself post something each day forces you to go out and learn something, forces you to sit down for 10 minutes, half an hour, and study. And that's so important.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I got to get back to it. I had some stuff happen, so I took time off YouTube, but I tend to like do live coding on YouTube, and I literally call them fail streams, because like nothing's going to work that I do. People are going to make fun of me. It's going to be ridiculous. And it's going to be stupid. And people will be like, you don't know anything. But here's the thing, is you need to get that behind you and be like, hey, every failure I have is a learning opportunity. And why I still do these random coding live streams, because some people will hate, of course, but majority of the people, they'll actually help you to figure out what the error is. And so instead of just using my brain, I'm using brain of everybody else who's there watching my stream, give me tips on how to fix stuff. So this community approach to building things publicly, sharing, will help you to iterate through your learning much faster, rather than if you were doing it in a silo by yourself. So I'm like a big believer in sharing stuff, sharing your code. It could be like blogging, it could be like YouTube, whatever it is. It's you know, I feel like it's super important.
I think that though is not just a way for you to learn, but that's a talking point when you get your kind of foot in the door, or speak to a recruiter, or, you know, to come across and say that you are on YouTube, or you're live streaming, or you're doing these, you know, like online coding with other people in groups. That just shows that you're determined. It shows that you're kind of able to work with others as well. That's another great kind of soft skill that tech companies look for. And it's just building that bigger picture of what you're about and how keen you are to learn and get that first job.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to ask you. How important do you think like soft skills are in getting hired and getting your first job? Like a lot of people think it's like 90% coding, but I wouldn't say it's like 90. I think there's another element of that. I don't know what the right percentage is, but that makes a difference if you get hired or not.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's more than half. I think those soft skills are so important, because, you know, you can sit down in front of someone and know part of the tech stack, but if you come across keen, willing to learn, approachable, good to be around, then you've got a shot. And I think that becomes even more apparent when you go for these positions past your first job, right? Where they don't necessarily even do a tech test of some sort. They understand from your CV that you can probably do some technical stuff. But they want to know whether you're going to irritate the people you're around, or actually whether you're going to bring the team up and improve the culture at that company.
Yeah, it's crazy. Kevin got my secret. People hire people they like. And this is why I try to work really hard, because I'm an asshole, but I try to be likable. It's a skill, right? Like, no, I'm just kidding. But the point, what I'm saying is that there's truth to it. So this is the craziest thing. I had a CEO of a company say, it was a financial company that I worked for, my last role. He goes to me like, Paul, do you know why I hired you? I'm like, because I'm good at coding. And he's like, no, I hired you because, which I was like, oh man, I'm getting fired today. It's like, I hired you because you are very good at listening. You follow directions. You know how to communicate with other team members. You know how to ask the right questions. And I could see that you're willing to learn. And he goes to me, learning to code will teach you, will help you get there. You on your own will eventually get better and learn. But being a team player, understanding how to work with others in a productive way where stuff gets done, he's like, that's a harder skill to teach than anything. And I was kind of like taken back by that, because I was like, oh, you just told me I suck at coding. But he literally said to me, he's like, you know, we have like more developers that could be better. But, you know, to me, I like the fact that you're much better and easier to work with. And that kind of showcased, because I had no friction working on the team. Everybody in the team helped me. And I literally, from the first day I started to like the year that I ended, I like 100-fold my skill as a developer from where I was. And that was like insane to me.
Yeah, but you're so right. Like, you could come up against someone who's a bit more technically competent, but if they've not got that same personality and charisma and drive, then, you know, you've got just as much of a chance, if not more, to land that position. So yeah, so it's great advice.
The craziest thing I've seen, and I would have never believed it if I didn't see it, is that there's like developers that hold companies hostage. And what that means is that maybe they built something that only they understand. So I worked with a C++ developer that built this particular thing, and we were trying to move everything to the web, and he would never tell anybody what he did, because he was like, as long as people don't know what I did, I can't be replaced, so I have job security. And whenever I would ask him questions, his response would be, you're too stupid to understand C++. And I'm like, you're probably right, but still, that doesn't give you right to talk to me like that. And the boss that I work for, it was a bad company, by the way. I'm not going to mention them by name. It's VersaSuite. If you go and check out their Glassdoor reviews, I'm an idiot because I love trolling people. And you see my review, it's the best glowing review, because I was like, and everything else is like 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. Because I was like, some poor bastard's gonna read my review, apply there, and feel the same pain I felt. But that's besides the point. You know, but what I was gonna say is that even like the CEO of the company, he was like, man, I can't wait to fire that guy. I just can't. And those are like the hardest developers to work with. And yeah, and Doyle says 100% he's gonna get fired eventually. Yeah, and this is where like being a good team player, having good communication, having good social skills is important, because a lot of people want to do that. And the current company that I work for, Strappy, I had like, it was literally like 8-part interview. It was like something crazy ridiculous. Like I had 8 interviews before like they finally said, okay, you're hired. The first 4 were like more like technical, but the other ones were basically like, are you a good culture fit? Basically they had other members of the team, random people in the team, like meet with me. And basically they decided like, do we like Paul? Does he have the character? Or is he able to relate to others? Is he able to communicate well with others? Or is he like a jerk? And I think like that's such a big part, because people want to work with people they, you know, enjoy working with. And how's your experience been around that?
Working with jerks.
You know, like not working with, like, I guess you could, first of all, yeah, like, that's a more interesting conversation. Talk about jerks you met along the way while you were learning to code, and how the experience been. And then tell me about like the place where you were like, wow, everybody's like super nice and it was a very productive environment.
Yeah, I've probably been, you know, quite lucky. I think I've got a good sense of what companies will be like. I remember one really stands out when we were at the boot camp and we had this guy tell, are you there, Paul? Yeah.
You're back now.
Sorry.
It's okay.
No way, was that my internet?
I don't know what it
paid
was,
for-
but it's
I've
fine.
upgraded.
It's fine. Listen, I'm
Oh.
still not wearing any pants. You're good.
Kevin will absolutely rinse me if he's still listening, because I've upped my payment to get some better internet. Goodness me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just remember this one company who came in to talk to us at a boot camp, and it was from an agency, and he was essentially like, "Yeah, if we take you on, you either sink or swim. There's no support as such. You either do the job or, you move on." And I think you can generally suss out companies and their culture pretty easily from the way you interview. I don't think I've worked with jerks as such. I've worked with people who have been hard to approach, and then that has like a knock-on effect that kind of stops you wanting to ask questions, or, like we said before, I don't really want to expose myself in front of them in case they shoot me down or make me look silly or, whatever. And equally, I've worked alongside people in the same company who couldn't help you enough, really understood where you were in your journey, had been there themselves. So I think it's just people, isn't it, right? If you can join a company where they've got a good culture and they hire based on people rather than technical ability, I think you got a good shot of being around the right people.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of like, for me, and kind of like going back to your website where you want to give back, help the community. Like, that's the type of culture I want to work, where people that are senior or mid-level, that, let's say, working where you just got hired as a junior developer, they see you as an investment in their company, and they're willing to help you grow together, because they know the more stuff like you're able to do because they helped you to learn something new, like the more productive you're going to be, and the less you're going to rely on the upper players to help you. Like, you're still going to ask questions, but they know that if they invest with you now, they're making an investment on the whole team. And that's what I like, is working in places where they have that mentality, because if everybody in the community grows together, the whole community is going to get better.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with you. And that's just company by company, right? You can't kind of predict what you're going to go into in most cases, but
yeah. Here's an interesting question. I think I don't know who's saying bye, but he's leaving. Bro, what's the best way to get money online by coding? Because I'm not looking for a company or job. I just want to get small amount of money online with coding. I have a plan to do YouTube, but any other guys, and the reason this question is interesting to me, because it kind of talks about what are you motivated by, and why do you do certain things you do. So for me, I know it's going to sound silly. Money wasn't the main motivation learning to code. And I know it's not for everybody. And some people will do something because of money. That's fair enough. I just realized that if money was motivation, and if I didn't get the result early on, or proof that the money's going to come, I would have quit way before I made it. And so for me, the motivation was the learning. I really enjoyed what I was doing. And my first job at that company that shall not be named, VersaSuite, they paid me $13.75 an hour. That's $13.75 an hour. That is the same amount of money I got paid at my part-time supermarket job while learning to code. And I still took that job because I knew that the experience was something that was gonna pay me tenfold or more, whatever. And I worked at that company longer than I should have, for a year and a half. And then the next job I got was way easier to get, and it was way more money. And so it's you need to for me, if money was, and listen, let me do a caveat there. I was divorced. I had no responsibility. My daughter's 20 years old at that time, so she's not living with me. So I had zero responsibility. So I was able to live on that low income. So if you can't, definitely don't get a job for $13.75. But I'm just saying, if I was I need more money. Maybe it was when COVID started. I don't think there was other jobs available. I had to take it. And by the time I think I'm glad that I didn't try to look for other jobs, because it might have took a year or 2 years. But instead, I got a low-paying job where I worked for a year, and then I got a higher-paying job. And I feel like if I was motivated by money, I would have never made that decision to get the first job. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think everybody's different.
Yeah, I think just going back to that question, I think it kind of what are you trying to get out of making money online, and kind of drill down on that before you can give some kind of real advice, I think. But talking about money, I think that was partly one of the motivators for myself. I'm not really ashamed to say that when I worked in hospitality and I was on peanuts for twice as many hours, that does drive you to get there. And I think you have to have that drive, whether that's money or not, or it's just wanting to change career. Having that drive is what's going to essentially get you from where you are now to getting that first job. So you have to have something that's going to drive you, I suppose.
No, that's a good point. And money is a strong motivator. But if I had to rephrase it, by the way, hospitality, really hard business, and long hours and low pay for sure. But what I was going to say, did you have passion for coding, or was it strictly okay, when I get this job, I'm going to make this much money, and then one day I'll join the 6-figure club and so on? Or did you okay, I like this?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I got to the kind of end of working in hospitality, I kind of look back on the last job that I had, and the one other thing that I'd enjoyed doing was building a site on WordPress for them. And that's kind of what took me into coding and doing the boot camp. I would say that it took me a while to go from, okay, I'm just doing this to see where it goes, to actually I really enjoy this. And probably part of the reason of that is because it was tough. I probably couldn't say actually I really enjoy coding when I struggled like hell to learn and build and whatever at the start. And I think when you come out of the other side of that and you really are enjoying it, then everything becomes easier.
Yeah. No, I think for me, this is actually something that I figure out later, but it's a good point that you kind of help me bring myself back to reality, is that I always had passion for coding. Excuse me. And I thought that that's how everybody else felt. But the truth is people have different motivation and different reasons for doing what they do. And so now I feel like I'm lucky the fact that it's something I'm passionate about, because I think it would have been a lot harder if, I didn't have that passion to be able to do it. So
yeah,
I know we're at an hour. I don't want to take too much of your time. So what I want to do is just ask you, if someone were looking to break into web development, what would you tell them would be their first step?
Go to iamLearning.
Yeah.
And we'll help you. No, I think it's just get started with sort of HTML and CSS and do a course and see if you like it. It's okay if you don't, and you can pivot and go into a different role in tech. Start slow, don't rush. You're not going to get there next week. You might not get there next month, next year. But be consistent and hold yourself accountable, I suppose. I think that would be my core bit of advice, particularly the don't rush. I think that's really important. But yeah, thanks for posting the link. We're
going to take a whole level. I'm going to share
someone.
my screen. We're going to show the website. And so I see you have you could sign in and create an account. What are the secret benefits of creating an account?
At the minute, nothing. So we're at the point.
Yeah,
we're at the point with iamLearning where we've kind of, if you click find a resource, you can kind of filter some resources that we've got on.
You have good filtering, by the way.
You.
My internet's super slow, but yeah, I like your filtering. It's really good.
So account-wise, there's not a great deal, but we're working actively on a feature at the moment that'll kind of require you to be logged in. So that there will be some benefits to it, but the main thing is we're just going to create a place where we can help a lot of other people. We've got a Discord channel as well where We've got people who work in the industry, and we are more than happy to answer any questions anybody's got. You know, they can dive into the server and ping us, and we get back to them, you know, pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
we're just trying to create a safe place for learners.
Nice. No, it looks really awesome. And that's kind of like, you know, it's kind of funny. I have the same problem. It's not a problem, but here's the thing I'm going to say. Let me come back here. It's all about releasing things in like steps. And sometimes you might not have every feature available. And I kind of like this because it's the same issue I'm having. But if I waited to get all the other features into it, I would have never released the thing. I still haven't released my site yet, but I just like the fact that it's like, let's start here. And then we have a roadmap of the things we're going to do, and we're going to implement them over time. So I think it's a good learning for anybody who is looking to build a project, even if it's for your portfolio or something that's going to help the community, is done is better than perfect, and it doesn't have to have all the features. So let's actually talk about it. Like, how was the planning process for building iamLearning as a resource? How did you break it down, and like, what's the roadmap?
Yeah, so I'm building iamLearning with Chris, who I've worked with for a couple of different companies, and he's given me a leg up so many times. And he's like an incredible full stack developer. He can do back end, front end, DevOps, security. So I'm really fortunate to kind of be around him while we've been building this. But we've kind of just taken learnings from working in the industry, I suppose. We've got a Trello Kanban board for tickets. We have catch-ups a couple of times a week to prioritize tickets and features. We've had plenty of disagreements and conversations around what direction we should go in. And really the first step was, let's get something on the site. It's not going to be perfect, but we could help someone from day one if we do that. And then, yeah, I suppose we kind of hone into where we can deliver value to people and how we can deliver value to people as quick as possible, in a sense, but with quality in mind. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, there's some stuff on the site, just the way it looks, that keeps me up at night, but that's not the most important thing that we're doing at the minute, and it's not what we're actively focused on, and it's not going to be what's going to help people get into tech or people who are already in tech. So I guess that's where we're at. Our roadmap is we're going to be releasing more content. We're going to be adding more resources. We review all the resources we list every 60 days, if not more often. And we're hoping to release a bit of a kind of job ready, getting hired as a software developer roadmap, like I mentioned before, that can hopefully help people who've done that kind of initial learning, make sure they're at a good place to start applying and give themselves the best shot of getting that first job. That's kind of where we're at. I mean, you should see the backlog of features and ideas we've got. It's getting outrageous, really. But that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But no, thanks for sharing that. I'm excited to see like where you guys are going to take this website. And you know, I'm a sucker for people that have an idea and then they deploy a version of it to like production and start sharing with users. Because to me, like, because I've used to be in business, like had my own like martial arts school, and people like, well, what does that have to do with coding? Like, well, the fact that you have a product that you bring to the market and you start getting users, that's how money is generated for you to get paid. So anybody that goes through that process, I'm like, you're going that extra step that shows that you stands out. So like, I know you said earlier, like, hey, like I'm building this because it's my passion project. It's pretty awesome. But if I were to tell for someone, and it's a lot of work, I'm not going to lie to you, but if someone wanted to build a cool like cornerstone portfolio project, build a site and it doesn't have to be crazy, but it solves some problem that you could deploy live and you could get live users and put in your portfolio. Because to me, it's like any manager will look at that and be like, hey, you solved a business problem and it's deployed and you have users, even if it's like your mom, like that's like a huge accomplishment. And that's kind of something I'm trying to hold myself accountable to, is that I have a idea which is in the same space as you. but doesn't like it's different spin. It's not talking about resources. I'm not going to share my idea publicly here because, I mean, people gonna like because someone will say that already exists, Paul. Why are you wasting your time? Like whatever, doesn't matter. But I feel like it's just a good practice. Because let me ask you this: based on doing this project, do you feel like you learned valuable lessons regardless if this project did not succeed?
100%, yeah. My technical ability has grown. My networking skills are hopefully improving. I'm meeting amazing people like yourself and some of the guys in the chat. And there's so much more to it than just working on a project or what have you. And you kind of touched on that fact of like building something and deploying it. And I think a lot of the misconception with people who are learning to code or making projects is that we tell them to host a project so we can see it visibly. Well, actually, it goes beyond that. It's, okay, this person understands how to put a website live. It's not just a case of I've written some code. You're never going to read my code, but here's what it looks like. It's you've understood that process. And when you've got a passion project or a side project, it goes a step further again of how do I market this? How do I get that first user? How do I make decisions on what I work on and what features we're going to kind of put out there? And it's that bigger picture, isn't it? It's way more than just a bit of code that's hosted, I suppose.
Yeah, and some people are like, I'll never be able to build a project as complex or thought out as what Elliot did. So I'd like to show you the worst blogging website you'll ever see. And I literally just like put this together because there's things that I'm learning, and I'm like, somebody else will probably want to see an example of that, but I'm literally just using it as notes for myself to like be like, okay, what did I learn? And now I could use this as reference, and then I could also share, and also other people could see my code. And it's like super simple. So if like, don't overthink what you're doing, start simple, and you could iterate on the project idea and take it, to the next level. So just the fact that you're like, oh, my idea is too simple, just execute, bring it to production. And what I started to do, actually, I don't know if you do something similar, I wanted to ask. So whenever I build a project, I try to build the most basic skeleton thing where I set up the front end, I set up the API, and then I'll deploy both. So I'll have like a bare skeleton, nothing in it, but the project is literally already deployed, and it just comes like basically adding new features to it, rather than building everything completely and then waiting to deploy. Is that something you do or see another do?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We're kind of we use trunk-based development, so everything we do gets pushed straight out once we've done it, whether it's a small part of the feature or the full feature. We actively iterate on things, and that's another thing that doesn't get spoken about enough is these ways of working, these agile methodologies and iteratively delivering value to customers as soon as possible. If you can do that in your side projects, you actually are already working in the way that most companies do as well. And I think that's definitely something we're doing at iamLearning. Like I said to you, there's several things on that site that could be a lot more exciting or perfected, but it's not delivering value by spending time on those little odd bits. And like the account that we've released, right? What's the value of that? Well, actually, we've just released quite a chunky feature that's going to enable us to now deliver a lot more by releasing that. And I think if you can, like you say, get those bare bones out there early as possible, you can build on them. You can keep building on them.
Yeah, 100%. So any final words of wisdom before you go?
No, just keep going, keep building, keep learning, be consistent, be patient.
Yeah.
But surround yourself with good people, whether that be yourself, whether that be Kevin and Dan or Phineas in the chat or Engele, like all these people that are communicating in this chat, right, are part of that tech community and are on Twitter and are there to help you grow as much as you're there to help them grow. And just surround yourself with good people, and you'll succeed.
Yeah, I know I keep saying goodbye. I started saying this goodbye 15 minutes ago, but I was gonna say, for projects that you kind of showcase to the world, are you getting like specific like URL names, or you're like Netlify XYZ dot whatever? Like, what do you think looks more professional?
I don't think there's any harm when you're trying to land that first job of having a Netlify URL. I think if you can stick a custom domain on it, it's gonna make it stand out even more. And especially if you're building that project that solves a business problem like you mentioned earlier, having that like custom URL is pretty cool, and I think it'll catch the eye a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, not everyone's in a position where they can afford or pay for those luxuries. So yeah, there's no harm in a nice little Netlify link.
Man, like, let me ask you another question. What are your thoughts on tutorial hell and how to exit it as quickly as possible?
I was in tutorial hell for a long time. I think I was in there because I just got really down when I tried to come away from tutorials and not be able to execute something that I'd just watched, and I just carried on with the tutorials in the hope that one day I'd learn enough and be able to build something, but you never put those skills into practice, right? I think if you're in that place, take what you've just learned in the tutorial and add a little feature to it, change the color of it, make it a little bit more personalized. Then when you're feeling a bit more confident, try and create that tutorial again. You can refer to your own code, but in a different way. So if you just learn how to do, a to-do list of jobs around the house, well, create a shopping list. Create, anything. Just try and put a little spin on it and pull yourself away from relying on that tutorial too much, and you'll slowly find yourself coming away from tutorials and applying those skills and being a lot more confident in what you're doing.
All right, another question. What is your thought on Twitter Spaces? Slightly biased.
Yeah, I really like Twitter Spaces, but you have to join the right ones.
Yeah.
It's like anything on social media, right? There's going to be something good, there's going to be something bad, there's going to be someone talking a load of rubbish, and you've just got to kind of fish through for yourself to find out what is valuable. I'm not a massive fan of the UI and how it works and all the rest, but yeah, they're good, and we hosted them to help people, but we're going to start again hopefully by the end of this month. I'm yet to consult Dan and Kevin and Chris on that, but I'm hoping we can start them in the next month, and
nice.
They're a way of almost getting value that you'd have got traditionally from going to kind of a meetup or something like that. You can get that online now and get that value to your home. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what time do you do your Twitter Space?
So we used to do them at 1:00 UK time on a Friday.
Yeah, I was sleeping at that time.
We're hoping to do them maybe UK evening. But two of us were in the UK. One of us was in the tech capital of the world,
exactly. We all know where that is.
And one of us was in Japan. So.
Oh yeah, it's so hard to find. Like my daughter's in Japan right now, and we always like talk at weird times. But your Twitter Space is really good. I haven't yet to do a Twitter Space, but probably stick to YouTube.
Do one.
Yeah, I'll have to stop by, join yours for sure. Now, because we kind of briefly alluded to it, what is your thought on meetups? Like, obviously, Twitter Spaces are cool. Should people get involved in their local community, go to meetups? Again, I'm probably asking a rhetorical question here.
Yeah, but maybe not that obvious to everyone.
I
think it's part of that networking and building that bigger picture of knowing people. And I think there's so much value in it, because the people at these meetups are a mix between people who are already in the industry, recruiters, people in the same position as you learning. And if you can surround yourself with those people as often as possible, then you're going to probably stand a good chance of landing that first job. And realistically, that first job is probably going to be local to you, depending on where you live in the world, obviously. But yeah, get out there and meet people physically and face to face, and and see where it takes you.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing place to make connections. So I started going to meetups and I have this strategy, which is like, I was kind of like, oh, it worked. I was like, and I guess if the meetup is small, it'll work no matter what. But I was like, how could I get out in the community, get more well-known and get more practice in a certain technology, and then also have opportunity to speak, which will make me, I know, selfish and vain, like be cooler. Like, oh, I talked at this meetup. Look how posh I am, you know, like say stuff like that. Like, I think it's important. So what I did, I went to a local like remix community, right? And again, I think this is good value for anyone interested in going to meetups. So I went to the remix and I just kind of watched it and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then the next day I sent a tweet like to the organizer, like, oh, that was so awesome. I can't wait to build my next remix app. And then like I started building a remix app, and so this is like a simple remix app I built. Looks exactly like my other app because I literally just use Tailwind and Daisy UI. But I built like this simple remix app, and then I shared it and I tagged the organizer. And then Brooke was like, hey, Paul, why don't you talk about remix at our meetup? And so I was like, wow, that's a great way to kind of build engagement and to provide value to the community. So if you go to meetups, I guess like the thing that I'm discovering, try to be an active participant and see like what can you give back to the community, because that's how people grow. And so now like they're like, hey, we have another meetup coming up. Would love to have you chat about something. And to me, I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. So I'm like, okay, what are some of the topics you have? And they're like, well, we want to know like, how to do route nesting and like remix. I'm like, cool. And so basically I'm like, let me learn this, create a presentation, give a talk. So I'm like engaged in the community, providing value, but at the same time, I'm also learning stuff. And I think it's a cool approach and increasing your engagement. And when people see you giving back, they'll be more likely to be like, hey, we're hiring. Would you like to, apply? And that's kind of like what happened. Like I have a great job. Unless I get fired, I'm not leaving there for a while. But it's a great way, like when people see your involvement, see that you care, see you giving back, they'll be more likely to approach you and be like, hey, like we have an opening for you. But that's been my experience.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's great advice. I think it is kind of a case of you learning and giving back, but also creating opportunity down the line for yourself. And yeah, that's an amazing thing that you're doing there. I wish I had the guts to do that as well.
Listen, my only thing is that I sign up for things before I think them through. And so sometimes they miserably fail, actually a lot of times. But the only reason I'm able to do that, and again, like I acknowledge this, is my whole life I've been the black sheep of the family. So I kind of got used to like always like failing. And to me, like I learned super early that every failure, if I learned something, like the key word is if you learn something from it, is going to be a good experience. So now I look at like failing like as normal part of my life. But public speaking is hard. If you haven't done it, definitely ease your way into it. One thing that upsets me, people go to me like, Paul, you're so good at speaking, which I'm like, okay, like that's great. You're like, you're so lucky. And then I want to literally slap him because it's not luck. Do you know what I used to do for past 20 years? Public speaking at my job. It's not that I'm good at it because I'm born lucky. It's because I did it for 20 years. Like anything you do for a long time, you're going to become good at it. And this is and the only reason I get upset about it, because it's like when people see someone's good at something, they're like, oh, it's because it comes easy to them. And that's messed up because you're basically disregarding all the years of practice they put in to that thing to get good at. And you're not giving them the credit that they deserve for their hard work. But it's like, if you want to be good at coding, do coding. You want to be good at public speaking, do public speaking. You want to be good at eating ice cream, eat ice cream. And that's like kind of the approach that I take. But man, I had so much fun chatting with you. Really awesome. Everybody go check out iamLearning, the website that Elliot is building part-time. I'm really excited to kind of see where you're taking it. I'll throw the link again in the chat. And then where can they find you on Twitter? Just in case someone doesn't know you on Twitter.
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat as well, and hopefully it will make me lose followers. But yeah,
I know
That's
that's
where
like
you can find.
that's the risk people take coming on my YouTube channel. It's like, oh, the reputation. Oh no, like you want the dad guy show. That is crazy. No, but I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by. Everybody who's here, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. I really appreciate it. Like the joke that I make is that you're like, it's not even a joke. I tell people, listen, like I wouldn't be here like specifically to this YouTube channel if you didn't show up. And so literally you're the bricks in this community that allow me to speak with you on the weekends. And so I really appreciate it. And, you know, I want to say also, Twitter is awesome because that's where I met Elliot. So I have my, like, you know, I normally have my doubts about Twitter, but Twitter could be used for the power of good. And this is why we had this amazing conversation with Elliot, because we met on Twitter, and to more to come, unless, you know, you're like, oh, screw Paul, whatever. But it was a great time. And definitely, so I don't think you told us, so you're still in the plan to figure out a better time for your Twitter space. I think we kind of dozed off that question for a little bit.
To be announced, yeah.
To be
definitely.
announced. Okay, just making sure. Okay, because you do really good spaces the few times I was able to be awake at the time that you were doing. Someone asked, do I have a Discord server for this channel? I do not. I have a community that I'm kind of part of on Circle because I had too much stuff happen in my life. So, but it's there. So if you want to join, sorry, I'm going to plug something, my own thing. It's completely free. It's basically a community like Slack, but it's not on Slack. It's on this thing called Circle. The two requirements are, I want to make sure that you are actually not passionate, but you're taking the steps to make the transition into web development. So you need to at least have a GitHub, or you have to have a project in your portfolio to show for it. So all you have to do is send me an email at codingafter30@gmail.com. I'll put it over here with a link to your GitHub. And then I'll invite you to the super secret community that I need to actually be more part of. But no, I don't have Discord, the short answer. I just couldn't take the time to manage it. Do you have Discord? Yeah, you have Discord. Yeah, do you want to throw the link?
Yeah.
People should,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, people should check out. And I don't know if you're throwing the links in the YouTube chat or in the private chat. Actually,
I've not. I think
you don't know. Hold on, I'll
YouTube
throw
chat.
them. Yeah, if it's nice.
Hopefully the YouTube chat. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll double check for like a second.
But Paul, just while you do that, thanks so much for inviting me to chat with you. And it's amazing that you're doing these kind of YouTube lives and YouTube channels full of incredible free information, right? Helping so many people. And next time I come on, I promise to have some magical lighting behind me and a proper microphone, and I might have to pay a little bit more for my internet again. But
no, you're brother.
You.
You're good. It's my pleasure. I mean, and thank you so much for the kind words. I mean, for me, like you said, life is too short, and so you want to give back to the community. You want to be part of like something that you could say like, you know, I feel good because I did this. And that's how, you know, everybody grows, everybody wins. And so I thank you like for taking the time and the opportunity to stop by here and say hello. I really appreciate it because at the end of the day, I'm still some random dude on the internet. So I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely love to have more conversations as well. So thank you so much. With that, also thanks to all of you who joined us wherever you are. You know, have a good night, good day, you know, good morning maybe. But with that being said, thanks so much, and we'll chat with you later. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.